Hello everyone and welcome to another video by Liminal Spaces. Just wanted to do a quick channel update. We'll do some sci-fi and fantasy news. First, the first bit of news is the second season of Rings of Power is coming out on Prime Video August 29th. My incredibly unpopular opinion that everybody always makes fun of me for is that I really enjoyed the Rings of Power. There were some obviously really stupid points, but overall I was highly entertained by that show. I liked it. I know that it bases some of its information on information from the Silmarillion, and then it doesn't follow that to a T, which made a lot of people really angry. But I've never read the Silmarillion, so I was okay with it. I enjoyed it. So hopefully, I know that the comments are just going to be an explosion of people talking about whether that's good or bad, or just everybody talking about how bad it is and how much of an idiot I am for liking it. But I do like it. I did. It was really fun. It was good fantasy, and I like good fantasy on TV. And I think if we want to keep seeing good fantasy on TV in this weird era of nostalgia where we can't just make new fantasy, we have to make fantasy that's a part of a huge intellectual property, then we're going to have to see fantasy that happens in the universe that isn't necessarily discussed in the books. And I do wish the Rings of Power would have just told a story that had nothing to do with anything that had been written in the books, that it was just a story in the universe, but that isn't the case. Another example of this is the Solo movie from Star Wars. I know a lot of people really hated that because Han Solo was played by a different actor. But it didn't bother me, because if we want to see Star Wars stories, we have to allow other actors to play beloved characters. Leonard Nimoy is obviously not playing Spock in Strange New Worlds, and the new Spock is doing great. So, yeah. This could be a debate that could go on for hours, and it may do so in the comments, but I'm going to watch the second season of Rings of Power, and I enjoyed the first one. I thought it was really fun. I like watching fantasy on TV, and I'm very hard on books. I deep read books very seriously, but for movies and stuff, if I'm entertained, I'm happy. I can see past a couple of obvious big plot holes without really caring. So I'm excited for that one. I'm also excited because the Jim Henson Company is doing a new movie, and they're doing Grindle, which is based on the Beowulf myth, which is super cool. I love old myths and folk and fairy tales, and Beowulf is one of the best, in my opinion. I really enjoy that story. But I'm even more surprised because it's going to be a movie that tells the story from Grendel's perspective, but they have done a very cool thing in that it's not just based on the Beowulf myth, it's based on John Gardner's novel, Grendel. That's the movie they're making. And this is a really incredible book. It's an interesting look at the myth from Grendel's perspective. So when I found out it was this they were doing, I got doubly excited. That is really, really awesome. I am excited about that. It looks like Jeff Bridges is going to play Grendel. Dave Bautista is going to play Beowulf, and Bryan Cranston is going to be King Hrothgar. So looks really interesting. I'm excited for that movie. All right. I also wanted to plug a friend of mine really quickly, if you don't mind. I have a friend who I used to make music with, I grew up with. He was one of the people that played the Scare game with us at the very beginning. If you're interested in what the Scare game is, go watch my brother's video on The Ring, the Japanese Ring. He talks all about the Scare game in that video. It's a game that we used to play that is incredibly fun and very scary. But anyway, my friend Aaron played the Scare game with us. We used to make music together. Here's a picture of us when we were in a band. And he is a pretty prolific writer. He writes in sci-fi and fantasy genre. I remember reading his stuff all the way back to when we were teenagers. I remember reading one of his stories about a person that is exiled to a planet and is forced to hunt a beast that is kind of a cosmic horror beast that hunts through all dimensions of the multiverse at once. So when this beast kills you, it kills every iteration of you through all the multiverse. Wild stuff. But I bring him up because he has recently started a fantasy series. He's just finished the third one, and I don't know if it's released yet or it's going to be releasing. But I wanted to recommend that you try this series out. Not just because he's my friend, but because it seems like it's a really good series. I must admit that I haven't fully listened to the book yet. It just came out on Audible. He made a deal with Audible, and this fantasy series is being done. All the books are being done on Audible. So if you have Audible, you can pick it up there. And it's called My 3-Year-Old is a Barbarian, and it's by my buddy Aaron Frail. And it's fantasy and comedy. And the premise is incredible. And this is why I feel comfortable recommending it before reading it, because this premise is so good. It's about a woman who is an adjunct in a college and has, her name is Petra, and she has a child, a 3-year-old son. And they are zapped to another world. Petra becomes a halfling, right? So a very short, hobbit-like creature in this fantasy world. And her son, the 3-year-old, becomes a barbarian. So if you can just imagine a 3-year-old in Arnold Schwarzenegger's Conan body, you get an idea of this novel. Hilarious concept. Please go to Audible, download this book and give it a shot. I think you'll really enjoy it. If you don't like listening to books, it's also available on Amazon. Again, that's Aaron Frail, and the book is called My 3-Year-Old is a Barbarian. I'm sorry, the entire title is My 3-Year-Old is a Barbarian and Other Parenting Problems by Aaron Frail. Give it a listen. Let me know what you think. Okay, let's move on to what I have been watching. Jason made a good point in the last channel update that this is a hard section for him because everything that he watches, he talks about on the channel. But this is fun for me to do because I don't talk about everything that I watch. I talk about everything that I read. I went on vacation. I went to, we have land in central Utah. It was my grandma's house, and it's in this very tiny town, and there is no internet. I mean, you can get internet if you live there, but we don't have any internet because we don't live there, and the phone service is really bad. So I was basically offline for the last half of last week. And because of that, the way we kind of kill time is we watch DVDs and go to the movie theater. When we first got there, the DVD that I found that we all decided to watch was the Salems Lot original 80s miniseries. So I popped that on. There was a little DVD of it there, and I popped it on. And me and my aunt and my parents had an incredible time. It was super fun. I've forgotten how good that show was. It aged well, other than if you watch this, focus on him closing his car door. He's got some kind of a Jeep thing, and it has a cloth door, and you have to turn the handle, close it, and then turn the handle to lock it, or it just comes back open. And the actor fights with that door throughout the entire show, and it was hilarious. We were laughing at that. But no, it's a good story, and I read Salem's Lot, I think 2 years ago. I did a reread of it because when I was a kid, it wasn't really my favorite. But my reread of it, I really enjoyed it, and that TV series was really good. I had a lot of fun with it. So if you're looking for something to watch, rewatch that old TV series. We also went to, there's a slightly larger town, and we went there and went to the movie theater. They have a little duplex movie theater, 2 screens. And we went there and we watched the new Planet of the Apes movie. I think it's Kingdom of the Apes. Anyway, I didn't have very high expectations, and I've seen the other two, but I don't remember anything about them. In fact, right before I left, I called Jason, and he reminded me of the ape Caesar from the other two movies. So that's all I remembered, and I didn't even remember it. It's just because my Jason told me about it. So we sat down to watch what I thought was just going to be a crazy kind of over-the-top action movie, and it was not that. In fact, I really do recommend that you go see this movie. And I'm not as hard on movies as Jason is. Plot holes can get past me. I'm much more of a focuser on what I read than I am what I watch. Yeah, so it, in my opinion, could be called Conan of the Apes. And what I mean by that is this is, in my opinion, basically a sword and sorcery movie. If you consider the technology that the humans used to have as weird sorcery artifacts, and you consider the technology magic, you're just watching a sword and sorcery movie. I was blown away by how it so perfectly followed the beats of those sword and sorcery movies. Spoilers coming up now. I'm going to give you a small plot synopsis. Most of these spoilers happens within the first 15 minutes of the movie. But yeah, I'm going to spoil all the way through this movie. So if you haven't seen it and you want to go see it, give me like 2 minutes. Skip forward 2 minutes in this video. So that you don't catch any spoilers. Okay, quick spoiler section. It's about a young ape who watches his village destroyed. Very cool culture. Apes that tame birds. Really neat. Watches his father killed. Goes on a quest for vengeance. And the quest, he meets quirky sidekicks along the way. An orangutan and a human girl that they don't think that can talk. That actually turns out to be, well, what I would call a wizard if we look at it from the apes' perspectives, because she understands how old human technology works. And they end up going to this small kingdom, this area that lives in an old hollowed out boat. And there's a cave that is sealed next to them that holds crazy sorcerer power from the technology of humans before all the big change. And they have to overthrow this society to get vengeance for his father and bring his clan back together and delve into this mysterious cave of magical artifacts. It was fun. It was fun. Go check it out. It's not what you think it is. I was highly entertained. Also, it's absolutely beautiful. It's really, just worth it to see the ruins of Earth covering with vines and plants. It's just a really entertaining movie all the way around. I highly recommend it. So the day after that, we went to some yard sales, and I found a Blu-ray copy of Conan the Destroyer, which honestly, I think I did see that when I was a kid, but I had no memory of it. And I called Jason and said, I found this, I'm going to watch it. And he said, ooh, I've heard it's pretty bad. And I watched it, and I really enjoyed that. It was super fun. Again, I'm not very hard on what I watch. I'm harder on what I read. But I really enjoyed it. It is too bad that they tried to make it kind of half a comedy. I think the reason that people didn't like it is because it did the same kind of Raiders of the Lost Ark thing, where they decided to add comic relief, and they did the same with this. They created a thief that is comic relief, but it had Grace Jones in it, which was super cool. The story was great. It was almost cosmic horror. They unleashed this elder god at the end, and the makeup was great. Arnold Schwarzenegger was fine in it. There's a whole scene where he's drunk that was pretty dang fun. But really, truly, the sets were incredible. If you watch it for the sets, I think you'll just enjoy it for that alone. Because this is a time before CG. They had to build all this stuff and use practical effects for all this stuff. And it was really cool and really fun to watch. So yeah, those are the three things that I watched while I was on vacation. And I would highly recommend them. They were a good time. All right, on to the channel update. Next week, I will, and I've already filmed these videos, but I'm not going to put them up till next week. I will be talking about A Wizard of Earthsea by Ursula K. Le Guin. So yeah, if you want to read this, it is a quick read. It's only like 196 pages long, even shorter in the paperback version. So if you'd like to read that, please do. It was a really fun read. So I'll be talking about that next week. Keeping in the fantasy genre, my brother Jason is going to be talking about the Lord of the Rings movie, the first one, The Fellowship of the Ring. Boy, that was awesome when that started coming out. Oh, so much fun. So he's going to be talking about that movie. He's also going to be talking about Dark Carnival by Ray Bradbury. I'm so happy to have my copy of this. This was Ray Bradbury's first release, and it is dark and really more horror than sci-fi. So fun. So he's going to read the second one in that. Usually he's going to jump and do Asimov one week and Bradbury and Dick the other week. But in this case, he's having so much fun with this new Bradbury that he's going to do another Bradbury story, which is awesome. So next week will be Tales of Earthsea, Ursula K. Le Guin, a Ray Bradbury story from Jason, and him talking about the first Lord of the Rings movie. I'm actually going to go 2 weeks out this time, just because I know people like to read along and watch along with us. So I want to give you plenty of warning on this one. We're going to do a themed week. Not next week, but the week after. And the theme is going to be Roadside Picnic. Yeah, by the Strugatsky brothers. I'm so happy I found this. I found this while I was on vacation. I'm going to have a book haul video up on Saturday or Sunday talking about it. Yeah, so we're going to be doing this, and then Jason's going to be talking about the movie Stalker. So that should be really, really fun. If you would like to join us, watch the movie Stalker, and give Roadside Picnic a read. So that's what you can expect in the next couple of weeks. On to the comment of the week. I chose this comment because it was a really good question that I think deserves an answer on camera. And this is by Crit9125, who I'm just going to call Crit from here on out. And Crit says, you clearly collect a lot of books. Now, you clearly haven't read every book in your collection, so that leads me to a question. Why do you buy a book knowing that you won't ever read it, or that you just might read it? Just for the collection's sake? Thanks. This is a really good question, and it's a question that gets asked to people with large libraries all the time. And you guys, I've been going over my science fiction library, which is basically, you can't see it, but there's a shelf here of hardbacks. And then there's a shelf here of softbacks, and then there's a shelf here with the DAWs and some fantasy stuff. This is one corner. I have 2 rooms that are filled with other shelves, horror, a lot of antiquarian books, all the stuff that I loved in college, old Victorian stuff, myths, fairy tale, folk tales, so much more. And Crit brings up a really good question. Do I buy stuff knowing that I'm never going to read it? So the way that I keep my library going is I have a booth rented out in an antique mall where I sell nothing but books. So I also sell books, and the reason that I started doing that is because I started collecting books because one of the things that I love to do with my mom that she's into as well, and it's a way to hang out with her and have fun with her, is going to yard sales. So we would meet, we both live in the same town, which is great. So we would meet once a week, usually on Saturday, and do yard sales. And one of the things that started happening is I started getting a ton of incredible books. And one of the first things that I did is started trying to collect all the books that I had read when I was younger, when I was a teenager. So a lot of Stephen King, a lot of horror books, and that kind of stuff. I was also interested in classics, Victorian classics, American classics. So I started collecting all the books that I had and read while I was in college, or once again when I was a teenager. And then I was like, I kind of want to get into science fiction. So I started collecting science fiction books, and I would just grab anything that was science fiction. And the prices at these sales are usually so cheap that I was able to just amass this massive collection. A collection that was too big for me to read, as Crit has pointed out. So I started reading science fiction. I read some Zena Henderson, and I read, I think it's Poul Anderson's Vault of Ages, Zena Henderson's The Anything Box, Lawrence Manning's The Man Who Awoke, which I did on this channel, some Frank Herbert. I just started reading some of them. I just pick what looked good and start reading it, because my goal was to read through all these. Then the collection got so big that I knew that I couldn't. So I started reading the backs and maybe popping onto Wikipedia or Goodreads to see what kind of reviews they got. And if it seemed like something that I wasn't interested in, I'd get rid of it. So I've actually really smashed down my collection. I really have. And what I do is I then take them and sell them at my booth in the antique mall. Still cheap, but usually for more than I paid for them at the estate sales and the yard sales, so I make a little bit of money off of it. So that basically they pass into other readers' hands. That's kind of the history of the library. But the truth is, first, every book that I currently have in my library I want to read. But that doesn't change the fact that I've knowingly bought books that I might not have time to read in the long run, which makes this question really good. Secondly, I have absolutely bought books that I know I'm never going to read, but kept them in my collection. A perfect example of this is I have 2 copies of Deus Irae by Zelazny and Dick. I need 2 copies. One has a different cover. I like the cover art on both of them, so I kept one with the cover art that I liked. So I have a book in my collection that I straight up am never going to read. And one could say I have a book in my collection that could be read by somebody else that they're not going to stumble across now and can't be read. So I get the conundrum in Crit's question. So yes, I do have vanity books in my library. Books that I just really love, and I get a kick out of owning a specific copy or having a first edition. And the Three Stigmata of Palmer Eldritch, there's another example I can give. I have the first book club edition, which I'm happy to have. But Daw also released a copy of the Three Stigmata of Palmer Eldritch that has probably the coolest Philip K. Dick cover of them all. So I have 2 copies of that book. One of them's just a vanity copy, straight up. So yes, I will buy books that go into my library just for the collection itself. And it did make me stop and think. Chris' question did, am I hoarding in a way that is... It's not hoarding if it's books, by the way. Am I hoarding in a way that is keeping this literature out of other people's hands? And the answer is maybe a little bit, but not too bad, because I only get vanity copies of books that I absolutely love. But on the same note, yeah, I have a lot of books that I am hoping to read sometime. And I'd also like to say that I have always been an obsessive reader and have read, believe it or not, a large chunk of the library. The weakest part of the library, the one I've read the least of, is science fiction. So it seems like I'll say a lot of times when I'm going through my science fiction library, I haven't read these yet. But the channel is giving me an excuse to read through a lot of those. This is a wild concept. I like it. It's a good question to ask book collectors. So I really had to think on it a lot when Crit first asked the question. The answer is, of course, way more complex than, yes, I buy books just to add to the collection. I buy books that I want to read, and I hope to live long enough to read all of them. But on the same note, I sometimes have doubles because I just like the artwork on the other ones. So yeah, sometimes I do just buy them for the collection. Thank you for the great question, Crit. I really appreciate it. We had a boost to our subscribers this week. We got 1,000 really fast. I think it was because my video on the Shadow of the Torturer did very well. You guys seem to really like that video, so I appreciate so many of you watching them. And I think the video also brought in a lot of new subscribers. So if you're a new subscriber, say hi in the comments, introduce yourself. We're glad to have you here in this community. There's a lot of stuff in the back catalog that you can go check out. And we are a pretty prolific channel. We make videos. We try to do them once a day. But our real goal is 4 a week, 4 videos a week, 2 from Jason, 2 from me, and then we do all kinds of other stuff if we're in the mood. But you'll always have 4 videos a week from us here, and recently it's been 7 to 6 videos a week. So welcome aboard to all the new subscribers, to everybody that's been watching with us for so long. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate you. If you watched this video to the end, thank you very much. If you liked it, please click like. If you like this kind of content, please click subscribe, because we'll be making a lot more of it in the future.